How's everybody doing? It's the Big Me Kickoff. I'm your host, Kevin Noon. It is Monday, March 11th. Spring break. If you are a student at the Ohio State University, it's been a minute since I've been one. There is no such thing as a spring break for most grown-ups, unless you are a teacher yourself, and then you're probably busy still getting caught up on other things or side hustling or something else, because youth is wasted on the young, so to speak. I want to thank everybody for joining me this week, or today. We're going to come on 3 times this week. I want to thank our friends over at No Naturals. Tell you about a special promotion they've got going here in a second. You can check all of that out down below on the scroll or in the show notes, but we will get to that here in a second. For those who've noticed, yes, it was finally time for the haircut. New glasses too. Not sure that anybody really pays that close attention. And if you are you going to ask me out? I don't know. But yeah, excited with the new glasses. I can see. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be any easier when it comes time to take your questions on the live show on Friday. What I want to talk about in the show, and we will get to it here in a minute, is the upcoming Big Ten season and the best quarterbacks in the league not at Ohio State. Now, this is a feature I'm going to do kind of throughout the offseason. It doesn't mean that I'm going to do these in back-to-back shows or I'm going to run all of these through the next week or two. I'm going to kind of spread it out. You may say that I'm doing this because I don't know what to talk about. That would only be partially true, but I've done research. This is not a case of I'm just pulling this out of thin air and hoping for the best. I did sit down and spend some time going through rosters, going through numbers, and you'll see that here in a minute as we get to it. Also talk briefly about the upcoming Big Ten tournament, but I have a feeling we're going to do at least one more show prior to Ohio State's first game on Thursday. So we won't get too heavily into that one. But let's talk about our friends at No Naturals here quickly before we get to the crux of today's episode. Are you ready for an entirely different and edible experience? Welcome to No Naturals, where we're shattering the stereotype of one-note, slow-acting gummies. Forget waiting over an hour to feel the effects. Our gummies are fast-acting in just 15 to 30 minutes. You're not just choosing a flavor, you're choosing your vibe. With 5 core experiences and 6 custom combos, you're in full control. Whether it's energy and focus without the crash, a peaceful slumber that lasts all night, or a game-changing burst of bliss and euphoria, these edibles are the real deal. And the best part? You don't need a doctor's recommendation. No Natural gummies are dispensary quality and discreetly delivered right to your door. So whether you're craving a productivity boost, a good night's sleep, or some blissful euphoria, say hello to No Naturals. Try them today and use code, and this is a brand new code for everybody, HIRISH, for 25% off your order at shop.nonaturals.com. Know your edibles. Know your experience. No Naturals. And I always do like to say that I do use these edibles. They help me sleep. I do have some Bliss ones that also kind of just help me sleep. I just think the fact of having something that has, some good stuff in it to calm my brain down is very important. I don't know if you're like me, but I have a really hard time shutting down at night. But this special with Hirish is only good through St. Patrick's Day. So load up, stock up. I know a lot of you already have gone and gotten these. Get more. It helps us out here at the site. It helps us out here at the channel. And you're going to help yourself out. It's a great product. But now that we've taken care of housekeeping, let's talk about quarterbacks. And as I said, we will hit some other positions. Now, will we get down to the point of the minutia of talking about best offensive guards? I don't know. We may do bigger picture in terms of linemen. I think with some positions, I kind of want to wait until we get through spring ball for all of these teams, because it's really easy for me to come. I can look at quarterbacks and I know who's going to probably be the starter. Maybe not at Rutgers. They obviously have Gavin Wimsatt. They got the transfer from the quarterback from Minnesota. The Greek quarterback, I would still think that it would probably be Wimsatt. I think maybe they employ a 2-quarterback system because Gavin Wimsatt, tremendous athlete, still has not progressed to where Rutgers wants him as a passer. Michigan certainly has a quarterback quandary on its hands, whether or not it's going to be Alex Orji, Jack Tuttle, maybe Jaden Davis, the true freshman. It's a big ask to roll a true freshman out there. And a lot of people have already said that the ceiling for Michigan this year could be 8-4. And if you bring a true freshman out there, do you even chop that more? I mean, I think the over-under for Michigan this year is 9.5 wins. Hammer the under. But let's kind of get to some of the best ones. And I'm not going to talk about Ohio State's quarterback situation here because that is not the purpose of this show. This is not a case of me putting them necessarily in order. I can do that later. I can do that in fall, during fall practice. I can start ramping things up at that point. But, the reality is I'm not at Oregon practice. I'm not at Washington practice. I don't necessarily know what things look like there. I'm basing a lot of this on last year's numbers and body of work. I'm going to be sitting here talking about Dylan Gabriel in a second, who transfers to Oregon. He has a long body of work because he's like in his 84th year of college football. As for somebody like Drew Allar for Penn State, we have 1 year of data. But on top of that, I also have an Ohio State game that when he played against the Buckeyes, and I can get into those numbers. So we'll kind of talk this through. Again, I'm not necessarily looking to make this the most in-depth, as in like an hour-long show or anything. I know a lot of you listen to this in the car, listen to it on the treadmill or whatever, and I appreciate everybody's listening. And one more time, especially if you're watching us on YouTube, be sure to subscribe to this channel. We are closing in on 20,000 subscribers. We don't get a trophy or anything. I don't think we get our first plaque till 50,000. But you got to get to 20 before you can get to 50. So if you're not a subscriber, subscribe to the channel. Give us that thumbs up. Hit the bell so you don't miss a single episode, not only of the Big Me Kickoff, but Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning, the Buckeye Weekly Podcast, Skull Session Recruiting Podcast, all that good stuff. If you're listening to us on your favorite podcasting outlet, give us a 5-star review. That certainly helps there too. But without further delay, we're going to start with Oregon. And Dylan Gabriel transfers in. Not the only transfer quarterback. They also bring in Dante Moore from UCLA. This is going to be the Dylan Gabriel show, taking over for Bo Nix. Dante Moore is more of the future. I think Dylan Gabriel is the short term. Last year, his passing numbers were really good at Oklahoma, but he's also a runner. So we'll go through all of those numbers. Threw for 3,660 yards, 30 touchdowns against 6 picks, ran for 373 yards and a dozen touchdowns. So accounting for 42 touchdowns ain't half bad. You go from a Heisman finalist in Bo Nix to get to Dylan Gabriel. Now, I understand that a lot of his career was at UCF, but what he did last year was at Oklahoma. And this was, yes, a Big 12 Oklahoma versus, as I get adjusted, versus, settle the screen down, what is going to be Oklahoma this year in the SEC. But he has proven that he can do this against Power 5, Power 4 competition. This is not somebody who has come up from the Patriot League or something like that and is transferring in, and you're hoping that it extrapolates, that you can extrapolate from this. You can transfer it in there. We know there's no such thing as the transitive property in sports. But you have seen him do this at 2 schools, and Dan Lanning has done a good job with the development of his players at Oregon. Bo Nix at Auburn, there was good Bo Nix and there was bad Bo Nix. There was very little bad Bo Nix, especially in 23. Unfortunately for Oregon, bad Bo Nix showed up at the worst possible times. And generally, that's how it's going to happen. You don't go out and have your worst game against Rutgers. You don't go out and have your worst game against, I don't know, Washington State when they're down. You don't go out and have your worst game against Vanderbilt. I mean, it can happen, but it generally doesn't happen like that. But I really think that Dillon Gabriel is going to be the guy that most people look at. I think of my list of 5 players that I have here, that Dillon Gabriel will be the one non-Ohio State quarterback that everybody will be talking about. And that's not taking anything away from these other 4 guys. That's not taking anything away from Ohio State's quarterback or giving Ohio State's quarterback too much credit. We don't know what Ohio State's going to have, but that is a different show. That is a different show. If you think that you know what Ohio State's quarterbacking situation is going to look like off of 2 practices, I don't know what to tell you, because the only footage that's come out, I've been there for all of it. I've shot a lot of it. We have not seen anything 11-on-11, 7-on-7. None of that has been made available to us at this point. But again, getting into a topic that I'm not ready to talk about at this point, Dillon Gabriel, one of the top quarterbacks in the Big Ten for 2024. Ohio State will face him. I think it's week 7, mid-October at Autzen. So buckle up. I think that one is going to be a good one. We will see just how far the Ohio State defense has come with the addition of Caleb Downs, year 3 under Jim Knowles. We will see all of that in that game. That is, a lot of people are saying that is de facto the biggest game of the Big Ten and could be the Big Ten championship game. Now, there are a lot of teams out there that are like, ooh, slow your roll, slow your roll. We're not quite ready to concede yet. But on the surface, it certainly appears to be so. Let's stay in the Pacific Northwest, and that is weird to talk about when we're talking about the Big Ten, but let's stay in the Pacific Northwest and talk about University of Washington. It also loses a transfer quarterback who meant everything for the program last year. Michael Penix is out. In comes Will Rogers, formerly of Mississippi State. Now, new head coach Jedd Fisch had to do a number to hold on to Will Rogers. Will Rogers commits to transfer to Kalen DeBoer, who is now at Alabama. Probably not any room at Alabama for him, because what do you do with Jalen Milroe and everything else? I mean, obviously, there is a familiarity amongst the Alabama program of what Will Rogers was able to do because SEC. But credit to Jedd Fisch to be able to hold on to Will Rogers. Now, 2023 was an odd year, was a difficult year for Mississippi State. At the end of 2022, college football world lost the Pirate, Mike Leach. And, that's certainly losing a head coach to him getting fired or something is one thing, but your head coach passing away prematurely. Mike Leach was still young. I know we all like to say 70 is the new 50 or whatever, and he wasn't 70, but way too young. And you have to wonder how much that kind of floated around the program. They bring in, they elevate a coach who doesn't even really make it through the year. That's just how college football is. And Will Rogers' numbers, not super impressive. Throws for 1,600 yards, 12 touchdowns, 4 picks. But you go back to 2022, he throws for nearly 4,000 yards, 35 touchdowns, 8 picks. I'm not going to talk about his rushing numbers because there is no need to talk about his rushing numbers. As I have here in my notes, not a rushing threat. And he is not a rushing threat. And it's not a case of, a change of scenery is suddenly going to become a runner. Well, a cheetah's not going to change his spots. I mean, and that's just what it is. So Will Rogers, I think, can be a very significant passer. Now, Washington does lose a lot offensively. And people are going to focus on the number 1 receiver at Washington leaving, but they lose more than that. So Will Rogers is going to have to throw some of these guys open, I think. I think there's going to be some challenges there. But in this portal era, I think it was a huge get, because I'll tell you what's going to be a lot more difficult. Thrusting a young quarterback into that situation with a new offensive line, largely, new receivers, largely, and, oh, by the way, a new coaching staff. And now, obviously, Jedd Fisch did plenty of things at Arizona to show that he is a young star in the coaching profession. But you don't know what you don't know. And sometimes when you walk into a rebuild, even a rebuild of a team that went and played in the national championship game, how quickly do things take? How quickly does the concrete set? When do you become what you are? This is going to be a team that I think early in the season is going to make a lot of mistakes that it's not going to make later in the season. Ohio State does not play Washington this year, so there's no crossover of saying when that's going to happen. But I think that Will Rogers, certainly based on his career arc, also belongs on the list of top Big Ten quarterbacks. And so we're 2 for 2 transfers already. Starting to see a trend. That's kind of where things are. So let's go to the third one I have on my list. And these aren't necessarily in any particular order. It's just kind of the way that things worked out as I wrote my notes out. But Drew Allar, Penn State. If you put in the Ohio State tape and you only look at that, what are you doing, Kevin? Why are you putting this guy on the list? He was not good against Ohio State. 18 of 42, 191 yards, 1 touchdown, no picks though. Sacked 4 times. And sacked 4 times with what was supposed to be one of Penn State's better offensive lines in recent years. Now, granted, Penn State has had some pretty bad offensive lines under James Franklin. You go and you look at the bigger picture numbers: 2,631 yards, 25 touchdowns against 2 picks, ran for 210 yards, 4 touchdowns. That means he's mobile. He's mobile enough. He's not going to get out there and win you a game with his legs. But also, I don't think Penn State has the depth to be able to say, Drew, run free, do what you need to do. If he gets knocked out for any significant amount of time, that is an issue for the Nittany Lions. Ohio State certainly had some of that going on during the Justin Fields era, where the depth was not there. Ohio State is just starting to right its quarterback room, and it's really easy for it to be unrighted, wronged. I don't know what the right term should be there. Wronged. Because does Ohio State carry 5 quarterbacks out of spring into the fall, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? If Ohio State were to lose a veteran quarterback, that room becomes very young behind the starter. So I don't know, but Drew Allar, I think that one is built a lot on the hype. You can see the arm talent. If you go and you watch other games, you can see that he has the arm talent. You can see that he has so much ability. He just hasn't been able to put it together yet. Penn State certainly has done him no favors in terms of its receiver room. Penn State goes out and picks up former Buckeye Julian Fleming. Is he the number 1 receiver for Penn State? I mean, they went out last year and picked up Dante Cephas from Kent State. He didn't really do much. The year before, they went out and picked up Mitchell Tinsley from Western Kentucky. He did stuff, but he didn't do a ton. So Penn State has not necessarily had a home run in the receiver room via the portal. And I don't know if it's a case of that Penn State I don't know where Penn State's recruiting is at receiver, but we all heard when Drew Allar was recruited out of the state of Ohio that the Buckeyes were making a huge mistake, and things happen. I mean, obviously the Quinn Ewers situation happened. Obviously, a lot of stuff happens that goes into Dylan Raiola and getting locked up in that situation. So I don't know. I think, though, when we are having a conversation here still in early March, that Drew Allar belongs on this list. Now, there are parts of Penn State I don't feel that are quote-unquote elite, and I think that's going to cost Penn State. But I think that the Big Ten, still in the upper tier, could be pretty wide open. I think Ohio State's going to win a lot of games. I think Oregon's going to win a lot of games. Who else is going to be in that group? Who else is going to be in that group? USC, we'll talk about them here in a second. Michigan, I'm not. Spoiler alert, I am not going to talk about Michigan's quarterbacks here, other than what I said at the beginning and the fact that we don't know who their quarterback's going to be. Sure, their defense is going to be pretty good based on Will Johnson and a couple defensive tackles. How are they going to score? With Penn State, yeah, Drew Allar had 25 touchdown passes against 2 picks. That's really nice accuracy. They also didn't throw a lot of 50-50 balls. They did not put him in bad situations, but you know what? Sometimes bad situations get you big plays, points, yards, all of that good stuff. And Penn State just kind of muddled around too much last year. And we're looking at a Penn State team, Nick Singleton at running back, Katron Allen at running back, and hasn't been able to do much with it. But I think most Penn State fans are happy right now at the moment because former Nittany Lion, Saquon Barkley, is going to the Eagles. See, we work everything into this show. Little free agency madness, the NFL transfer portal. So, I don't know. All right, this next name, I told you we'd talk about USC. USC under Lincoln Riley has had tremendous offense and poor defense. Out goes Alex Grinch. They go crosstown to UCLA, hire away their DC. Ohio State does one better and hires away their head coach. Will the defense be righted? We can talk about that another time. We're talking about quarterbacks right now. Miller Moss comes in for the bowl game last year against Louisville, number 15 in the nation, Louisville. I think 15 was a little high for Louisville. I watched Louisville in the ACC championship game look like garbage. I think the ACC got a little too much credit, but regardless, they are still a top 25 team from last year. Even if you don't buy them at 15, you buy them at 21, you buy them at 23. USC does not have Caleb Williams in the bowl game. They trot out Miller Moss, 23 of 33, 372, 6 touchdowns and a pick against Louisville. And quite honestly, Miller Moss probably could have thrown for 3 more touchdowns in that game. Is that a case of Miller Moss is just being slept on too much? Is that a case of that Louisville was pretty disinterested, playing in quote-unquote a meaningless exhibition game against USC, a team that itself didn't have its, one-time Heisman winner, not last year's Heisman winner, in Caleb Williams? I don't know. I don't know how to extrapolate that, but if I do not put Miller Moss on this list and he has a big year, then I look stupid. I would rather put him on the list and then he gets beat out in camp or maybe doesn't shine as much. And I can say, well, I bought into the bowl game. But, I think that he still has to make this list until I see otherwise. And when guys like Malachi Nelson don't even stick around at Southern Cal, if not there, then what do the Trojans do? So I just think that based on Moss's talent and Riley's ability to run really good offenses and what USC is able to amass yearly in terms of talent, no, Marvin Harrison Jr. is still not transferred there yet. I think that the numbers are going to be good. I think they're going to be really good. Could they get inflated a little bit based on some games? Sure. But USC is also entering the Big Ten, a conference that may not be as athletically gifted as some of the teams in the old defunct Pac-12 were. But I think most teams in the Big Ten take defense a hell of a lot more seriously than most of the Pac-12, the old Pac-12, minus Utah. And who did USC struggle with? Utah. if you could just sit there and say, take an old Pac-12 team and put them in the Big Ten just based on whatever reason, I think Utah is the team that was missed out on. No, the Salt Lake City TV market isn't going to do much. No, there's this reason no, and that reason no, and this other reason no. But I think just from a football standpoint, Utah would have been fun to see. So 4 down, 1 to go. Back to the transfer portal. And I really kind of went round and round on this one because we saw Wisconsin go to the portal, and it didn't necessarily work out last year. It didn't really work out. They go back to the portal, and they get Tyler Van Dyke of the Miami Hurricanes. Last year, 2,703 yards, 19 touchdowns against, wait for it, 12 interceptions. That has always been, the last couple of years, that has been part of the Tyler Van Dyke calling card. I'll get you touchdowns, but I'm going to throw picks. Been kind of a two touchdown to 1 interception guy the last couple of years. He was 25 touchdowns against 6 picks in 2021. You're moving to this Phil Longo offense at Wisconsin that still has not been able to turn into the offense that he wants. Wisconsin, when you have a guy like Braylon Allen, you've got to use him. You've got to run the ball. Braylon Allen moves on now. So are they able to kind of reinvent themselves? Can you name a Wisconsin wide receiver? Danny Davis is still not there. He's been gone for a little while. Jared Abbrederis is still not at Wisconsin. He's been gone a lot longer. So Al Toon is not there either. Let's just keep backing up the goalposts. But I think that he comes in with enough notoriety. We have seen good Tyler Van Dyke. We've seen bad Tyler Van Dyke too. We've seen bad Mario Cristobal, not knowing how to manage a clock. I mean, Luke Fickell is going to do a little bit of a better job there. Now, say what you will about the ACC, and I'm probably one of the most critical people of the ACC. I used to be able to watch any college football game. You could, give me a bowl of ice cream and tell me to sit down and watch this, and I will. I struggled to get through some games these days, and a lot of them are in the ACC. And Miami has been such an underachieving program, and I'm not trying to get in a fight today with Miami fans. I'm not trying to stoke the fires. Ohio State broke Miami after, in the 02 season, in that 03 Fiesta Bowl. Okay, well, maybe. But I'm not trying to pick that fight. But any Miami fan that says that the Canes are living up to the hopes and dreams of Canes fans are full of it. Because Miami has not been able to get there. Now, it'll be interesting to see what the ACC looks like, but this is not about that. But it is about Tyler Van Dyke and what Tyler Van Dyke is going to look like playing in the Big Ten, what Tyler Van Dyke is going to look like playing at Camp Randall, what he's going to look like at the back quarter of the season when the weather could be a factor up there. I don't know. I don't know what he's going to look like. I don't know what the Wisconsin offense is going to look like. I don't know what the pieces are. I know what Tyler Van Dyke is. Tyler Van Dyke, I guarantee you, had a more talented receiver room at Miami than what he's going to have in Madison. Is he going to have better coaching at Madison with the Badgers than what he had at Miami? Will he be able to overcome some of these things? Will he have the pieces around him to lift him up? That is the question that I have on Van Dyke. But it'll be interesting to see. So 3 of my top 5 quarterbacks not at Ohio State are transfers. One of them is a 1-year starter, and one of them is a 1-game starter. So apologies to Hudson Card and Gavin Wimsatt and Dylan Raiola and Cade McNamara and Luke Altmaier and some of these other quarterbacks in the conference. This is not going to be a great year for Big Ten quarterbacking from 1 to 18. It's not. Could it be a really good year from quarterbacking from 1 to 6? Maybe. From 1 to 4? Probably. From 1 to 3? Yeah, absolutely. I think there are going to be some frontline guys based on just what I see out there that are going to make things happen. They're going to make things happen. Now, I don't see a Heisman winning quarterback out of the conference, but I also think this is a down year nationally for quarterbacks. I mean, you're going to have Quinn Ewers at Texas and Quinn Ewers at Texas and Quinn Ewers at Texas. I mean, there are some other, you got Carson Beck at UGA. I mean, you've got some guys, but I just, I don't think it's where we stand here today. I don't see quarterbacking in the NC2A 2024 looking the same as 2023. Now, of course, we always have these moments. We have our recency bias and everything else, and it just can't be as good as it was the previous year. And then it just ends up settling in for one reason or another. And we just, you don't know. You don't know what you don't know. I'm assuming everybody has started spring practice or is within a week of starting spring practice. Ohio State returns to spring practice after this week. 13 practices leading up to the mid-April spring game, and we will have plenty of coverage here at Buckeye Huddle, including Ohio State's quarterback derby, which we will talk about at length. Quickly, I just want to talk a little bit about the NC2A or the Big Ten tournament in basketball. Ohio State, number 10 seed, is going to take on Iowa on Thursday at 6:30 p.m. I believe that game is on BTN or Peacock. I don't remember. We'll talk about it on Wednesday or maybe even tomorrow. I don't know when we're going to do the show. But what does Jake Diebler have to do in your eyes to get the head coaching permanent job? There are going to be some people that are going to say there's nothing he can do short of winning a national championship. And that is an acceptable answer. There are going to be some people who are going to say he's done enough. 5 or 6 games in this situation with a team that just looked dead in the water, sign him up. And then there are going to be people that are going to be in between that. Win a couple games in the tournament, get into the NC2A field, win a game or two there. And other permutations of that. And I don't know what the answer is, but I want to know what your thoughts are. And that's a perfect lead in to build into our next show. I will read your comments before I get on the air. I learned my lesson not to do a show strictly about basketball. It just does not turn on enough eyeballs. But we'll talk about it somewhat. And we'll figure out what other topics we want to talk about on the next edition of the Big Me Kickoff, brought to you in part by our great friends at No Naturals. Be sure to take advantage of their new deal through St. Patrick's Day. Use promo code HIGRISH, HIGHRISH, for 25% off of your order at shop.nonaturals.com. But until the next time, I want to thank everybody for watching. Talk to you very soon. Take care and have a wonderful day.